the most terrifying invention of the former Soviet Union. Photorock. The toxic gas it emits can instantly turn people's hair white, make them bleed from 7 orifices, and die a violent death. Just a few drops can put hundreds of thousands of people to eternal rest. This biochemical weapon also shocked Brian. That woman actually managed to get her hands on it. The two people coming out of the auction house planned to grab something to eat first. Russell, on the other hand, began to mutter at this moment. Because that woman is truly dangerous. No matter how prominent a figure she may be on the outside. Everyone on this ship must listen to her. She is the most extreme and pathological character I have ever seen. However, they were stopped by a familiar sound. The newcomer turned out to be the new Simon Sword Goes from Glory. She warmly invited them to have dinner together. When facing this woman, even Russell, who has seen big scenes before, he could only politely decline, not daring to blatantly refuse her request. But the woman is not easy to deal with. If she doesn't get a satisfactory answer, she won't let it go easily. Suddenly, she was pushed away by a hand. That was Brian disguised as Russell's bodyguard. He claimed to be feeling unwell. It can only be next time. If you really want to have a meal together, I am more than happy to serve you. Then, he quickly escorted the president back to his own room. Faced with such disregard, she was also extremely angry. She then took out her own perfume from behind and sprayed it on herself. She threatened that she indeed needed a dinner companion. Dinner is a long time. You'd better loosen your tie and eat with me properly. How would you refuse me? It's the same for any man. They will become irresistible to themselves. They will become unable to refuse their own requests. At this moment, Caleb Lucas, the two brothers, came to the rescue. Brian's confused mind. It was at this moment that he recovered. The two brothers, however, were too close together. They inhaled too much perfume. They became disoriented. They frantically cleaned the walls. This made Brian realize that perhaps Simon's mind had been corroded by these means. Otherwise, with his skills, he definitely wouldn't have lost one hand. Seeing this, the two of them could only give up and leave this place. Aren't you curious at all? What are you referring to? Think about it. 100 Brazilian assassins. Also, Daniel, who used 100% of his combat power, killed them all. An old man nearly 70 years old. Why did he do this when he was on the brink of death? Is there a possibility that it's not Brian? This place is different from the hospital. From the radar outside the ship and the possibility of disguise, the old man is not on this ship. Then, who will impersonate Brian? Why would he want to destroy his own former organization? Have you forgotten? We still have that thing. That man. How about it? Are you troubled? Or are you afraid? I might fall in love with someone else. Of course not. The cruise ship is sailing smoothly on the sea. At this moment, Brian changed into a waiter's uniform. He plans to gather information about Simon on the cruise ship. Simon said that although there is no blood relation, you are the only family he has. Judging from the current age, he will be the one to go first. Therefore, please don't get hurt. For Brian, Simon is also his family. He is his only younger brother. So, even if it means killing thousands of people, he is willing to do whatever it takes for you. As long as he can find you. The auction is being held as scheduled at this moment. So, all eyes will be on it right now. And one can use this time to track down Simon's whereabouts. He turned the kitchen upside down. The interior of the computer room has been completely cleaned. Even all the toilets on the ship, including whether there are hidden compartments. He did not find any trace. So now the only possible place. Only the auction house remains. And at this moment, the venue is bustling with excitement. Various astronomical bids emerge endlessly. When the hammer falls, the auction also welcomes the final item for bidding. Just then, the staff wheeled in a massive safe. The audience below was in an uproar. What kind of treasure could possibly call for such a grand display? The woman described this item as more precious than any piece of jewelry or painting. Those things can't even be compared to this one. It is even more eye-catching than Photorock. The woman turned the safe while introducing it. At the moment it opened, everyone was shocked. It was the former apostle of the Glory Club, the last blade. Simon, don't be fooled by his current illness. He used to be known as the strongest swordsman. How's Brian? Are you watching? Can you feel the blood boiling? This is enough to drive you crazy. So, just show up already. Where are you? Come out quickly. I can't wait. Found it. When seeing my younger brother on the table, Brian couldn't control his anger, exposing a terrifying murderous intent. However, he held back that breath in an instant, although it caused the other party to notice it. It was only for a moment. The position was not completely confirmed. The sword ghost also lost its direction as a result, but they did not give up on it. She's still lifting the atmosphere at the auction, trying to climax the auction as much as possible. Because she plans to, after the countdown of 5, if no one bids. Then she will have Simon killed. Brian is well aware of this. It's actually just a trick to lure him out. Let's not talk about whether one has $10 million or not. If one really raises their hand to bid, that basically means publicly announcing that oneself is Brian. If you choose not to bid, Simon will be executed on the spot. You should know that in the past. A disciple of glory is more valuable than a nuclear bomb. Nowadays, the auction hall is silent. The impatient sword ghost grabbed Simon by the hair, claiming, "You are now truly a trash that no one dares to want." She then announced to everyone, "If no one is willing to buy him due to the defect of a missing hand, then after 5 counts, kill him." At this moment, Brian was extremely anxious about how he could save Simon. He was suppressing his anger, his hands clenched so tightly that they were turning red. It was about to be the end of counting to 5. $20 million. The president of U Group indicated that he would use $20 million in cash to purchase the former apostle Simon of Glory. This action greatly astonished Brian. Even Sword Ghost was amazed by this. Why did Russell do this? You should know that he is his own boss's business partner. He is also one of the major shareholders of the Glory Club. Sword Ghost cannot attend at the moment. One is a shareholder of Glory, the other is his carefully run auction site. If he breaks his promise, he will suffer a heavy blow. Therefore, Russell successfully won the bid this time. A little while later, Simon was taken to the guest room for some simple treatment. Russell also realized that this was the person Jim wanted to save. But Brian started to worry. Russell would get caught up in this crisis. It's a dilemma for myself as well. It seems that this is the only way to avoid suspicion in Glory. Although Russell says he's fine on the surface, after all, he has a deep connection with Glory. But he still feels uneasy. How to proceed with this ship is what should be considered now. At this moment, Brian remained calm and composed. There's no need for the captain to worry, because he still has one card up his sleeve. Brian waited in the lobby of a hotel. Not long after, the brothers Caleb and Lucas appeared before him. They were covered in designer brands, shining with wealth. It seems they've made quite a fortune in these few days. They started to mock Brian for his poor appearance. They boasted, "Follow us, Big Brother will take you to enjoy the best food and drinks." But Brian's words immediately silenced the two brothers. The reason why he came here. Is it not to become a legendary killer like Brian? This sentence directly brings the two brothers back from their dreams to reality. They suddenly became excited. "Tell us, what do we need to do?" "Next, something extremely terrifying will happen on the ship, and you will be responsible for the A-level killer's mission." The two brothers wasted no time and immediately started preparing. Brian later returned to the hotel room. He looked at Simon, who was lying sickly on the bed. He really felt uneasy in his heart. Looking at him like this, it made Brian think back to the past. over 60 years ago, when they were still teenagers, taking advantage of their free time to watch the students play football at school. Simon said, "It would be nice if I could be as simple and happy as them, carrying a school bag on their back instead of a sword. There is no smell of sweat on them, but a fresh and clean school uniform. How happy it must be. However, how could one go to school when their hands are stained with blood? It wouldn't be right to pick up a pen to acquire knowledge. Brian also spoils him very much. He made a suggestion. He plans to establish a school that only admits those without money, without parents, and without a home to enroll. And Simon can naturally go to that school to study. All the expenses in the school will be borne by Brian himself." Simon finally showed a long-lost smile at this moment. But now, he shows no signs of improvement while lying in bed. Brian leaned over and softly said to Simon, "Please get better soon. We still need to go to school. You promised me, remember?" And all of this was quietly observed by Russell outside the door. On the other side, Sword Ghost returned to her room in a rage. She couldn't understand what the relationship was between Russell and Simon. Should she disrupt her plan or just kill Russell? Cut off Russell's head and hang it in the most conspicuous place on the ship. Let them know what will happen if they defy me. The income of the U group is very considerable. Without the boss's permission, you cannot kill him. He is a crucial cog in the kingdom to be established in glory. Your master should not be me, right? Don't get it wrong. On this ship, I am God. I represent everything. Send someone over immediately to kill Simon and Russell. Then, that old man Brian will show up." Shortly after, urgent knocking was heard at Russell's door. He was very puzzled as he had not made any appointments. But Brian said that he had actually arranged room service for him. He then asked Russell to wait for a moment. Brian came out of the guest room. Then he opened another room across the hallway. "Because in this room, it doesn't look very clean here. I need to clean up this mess myself. Even the amount of garbage is not small. Young people, there are dozens of marksmen here. You just hold that pepper shaker. Are you planning to use this to deal with us? Just a mere bodyguard. Don't try to be brave. Run for your life." Brian sneered. It seems that these people do not know how terrifying pepper can be. Excessive reliance on firearms, even with great capabilities, will eventually reach a bottleneck. Sometimes, these small items are more useful than bullets. Brian started to move his hands. The leader was stunned. This man showed no fear of firearms. He charged into the crowd, using a pepper grinder. He hit everyone in the temple, instantly killing them. And Brian is fearless because they have surrounded their enemies. If they recklessly pull the trigger, their comrades will catch bullets. If they hesitate, at their own pace, they will not be able to shoot accurately. It seems that these young soldiers have no idea how terrifying a weapon pepper spray can be. The smoke slowly disperses, revealing only a lone figure standing there. An interesting chase is about to begin. When he was informed that all the dispatched assassins had been wiped out, the Apostle Sword Ghost was extremely surprised upon being informed. There was no one so powerful by Russell's side. Those are all mercenaries personally selected by himself. In this case, there is only one explanation. Brian, the old man, is protecting him from behind. However, the captain of the security team beside her became flustered, according to the radio transmission. Regardless of whether it is a restaurant or a swimming pool, Brian's figure has been reported to appear in places like the control room, the casino, and even the cockpit. This makes Sword Ghost momentarily puzzled. How could he possibly appear in multiple places at the same time? He can't possibly know how to use a cloning technique. What is this old man really up to? What is his endgame? The cruise ship is in chaos at the moment. Tourists are fleeing in panic everywhere. Bodies can be seen everywhere on the ground. It turns out that all of this was done by Caleb and Lucas. Because before this, Brian told them a secret. The woman at that time inexplicably killed the arms dealer's 2 bodyguards. And after that, that person was never seen again. So that woman actually wanted to kill all the VIPs on the ship. This made the 2 brothers suddenly realize. So that's what happened. But next, you 2 must take on the task of being A-level assassins. Because both of you can disguise yourselves as janitors. They can easily move around various areas on the ship. The goal is to spread this message. Then the 2 of them spread this message to the ears of the crowd. This made the people who heard the rumors all very jumpy. But this was not enough to cause panic. He still needs to wait for an opportunity. When Brian fired a shot at the ceiling, the 2 brothers immediately shouted in the busiest place, "Someone has been killed! They've started killing people!" In just a moment, all the tourists were running wildly on the ship, fleeing in all directions. And inside the lounge, Sword Ghost heard various rumors. Some said that the crew members would kill all the VIP guests. Some also said that the notorious murderer Brian had come aboard the ship. "Brian, this old immortal, can't you just obediently let me kill you? You are already 1 foot in the coffin. You actually still dare to cause trouble everywhere. You actually dare to cause such a disturbance on my boat. Don't let me catch you." "Master, don't be mad. I'll go bring him back. I'll definitely bring him to see you. When are you so enthusiastic like this?" "But there's no need for that. He always hides in the dark. I think I know what to do. You just need to follow me. Just obey me. I have come up with a good idea." "What do you think it is?" "With this, he can't always hide in the dark, right? This can kill 200,000 people." "Good baby." Not long after, the poison gas began to spread everywhere in the cabin. Brian, who saw this situation, was also shocked. That crazy woman used photorock. Just by inhaling a tiny bit of it, one will die instantly within a few minutes. If this continues, everyone on this ship will die together. And also the 2 brothers and Captain Russell. Even Simon. But Brian remained calm. Because he had experienced countless similar situations and survived. However, the biggest crisis now is not photorock, but the masses. Because this will cause extreme panic. People who are driven to desperation by poison gas. They are simply unable to make the right judgment. If you want to save these people, you must inform them to all go up to the deck themselves. But the problem is, at that time, Brian was looking for Simon. He went to every corner inside the cabin. This ship. There are no alarm bells or broadcasting devices here. Most importantly, if you choose to save the crowd yourself, Simon will be in danger. And it's simply impossible for you to save them one by one. The tide-like crowd is also beyond your ability to handle. At that moment, he saw a glimmer of hope. Russell was carrying Simon through the crowd. He told Jim that the reason his group was able to become number 1. That's because whether it's technology or people, once we get hold of it, we will never let go easily. This is one of the most important principles in business. So just leave him to me. You go do what you need to do. Brian realized. The little boy he saved at that time. He has now grown into a man who can shoulder the weight of the world. Brian simply thanked him, and then left. He turned and rushed towards the direction where the poison was spreading, leaving Russell dumbfounded. He didn't hesitate at all. He went straight into the poison gas. He knew he should have stopped the young man. But he also hoped that he could do the impossible. Just like a long, long time ago. The man he expected himself to be like. The familiar feeling surged up in his heart as if from a time long ago. On the other side, the Sword Ghost had already opened a bottle of expensive wine. All that was needed was to wait quietly. Once the poison gas had killed everyone and dispersed, one could go search for Brian's body. In this way, one could present oneself to the big boss, claim credit, and receive the $7.6 billion bounty. Suddenly, the whole ship inexplicably started to lean. Sword Ghost was also puzzled. The ship he had built should not have had such an issue. 5 minutes ago, Brian invaded the control room, and he skillfully hacked into the control system of the cabin. Large ships typically have 3 ballast tanks. The tanks are filled with water to balance the ship. If the water in one of the tanks is emptied, the ship will lose balance and tilt in one direction. On a ship without any broadcasting device, and the crowd is in a state of panic, enable them to make the most effective judgment. That is to use people's most primitive survival instinct. The tilted cruise ship will trigger their instinctive response. Only by running upwards can they survive. And when they run upwards, poison gas heavier than air will stay at the bottom of the ship, rather than continue to spread out. And one must defeat the sword ghost and restore balance to the ship in order to save everyone. Seeing this situation, the sword ghost is even more furious. At the same time, someone came to report that Brian is now at the auction venue. She slowly took off her clothes, since he wanted to die so badly. Of course, she had to go and meet him. Then she went to her locker. She planned to carefully choose a suitable scent for Brian. She didn't know what scent he really liked. Is it the scent that old Simon likes? Or should I choose another one myself? Never mind, just bring all of these. After all, he is Brian. He should like it. In a short while, they arrived at the auction venue. At this moment, Brian was welcoming their arrival. Sword Ghost's expression changed inexplicably upon seeing this person. How come it's this little brat? Where did that old guy go? Brian stared at them, constantly suppressing his killing intent. Sword Ghost saw that he did not respond, wanted to draw his sword and kill him immediately. But Brian picked up the microphone. The final auction of Ghost's ship is about to begin. Today's project is the new owner of Glory Club. Personally selected new apostle, Sword Ghost. She was extremely puzzled. What is this silly boy talking about? In fact, she is the leader of Sword Ghosts wandering in Japan. Starting bid, 100. The humiliated Sword Ghost immediately drew his sword and rebuked angrily. She wanted to see what tricks this silly boy was playing. 100 yuan, no one wants it. Then 50 yuan, if not, 30 yuan will do. Can't go any cheaper than that really. Does anyone want it for 10 yuan? It's really a pity that no one wants it at all. Don't be sad, Sword Ghost. I will make sure your life is valued accordingly. What do you think? But before that, I want to ask you a question. That night, you don't really think you defeated Spiral Swordmaster, do you? It seems you have overestimated your abilities. Today, I will show you. In that era, the beginning of our touching together, what exactly is the Spiral Sword like in its heyday? The assassination group that has continued for thousands of years. Ghost Blade. It was unexpectedly wiped out in one night. The young Sword Ghost resolved to seek revenge. From that day on, she trained hard. One day, she awakened her unique eyes. Ghost Eye. Whenever she activates it, she can make heads roll instantly. That person cannot feel any pain at all. They can even see their body parts, experience the magical journey of their brain relocating. After growing up, Sword Ghost avenged 2,000 enemies. It was this ability that earned recognition from the boss of Glory Group. She was then promoted to become the new apostle of Glory against all odds. But now, she is facing the rejuvenated Brian. You should know that decades ago, Simon learned his swordsmanship from Brian. A mere spiral sword. In his hands, it is even more like a toy. Shadow was stunned when he saw this scene. This young man is just in his early 20s. Swordsmanship is not something that can be easily imitated. But why is his gaze full of confidence and composure? He inexplicably had a bad premonition in his heart. Because you can see it from his eyes. It's the terrifying killing intent. It's so unwavering. Realizing the danger, Shadow immediately tried to dissuade Sword Ghost, claiming that he would go deal with it first. But after being humiliated by Brian, she released the long-lost Ghost Eye to warn Shadow not to meddle too much. At this time, Even Shadow couldn't stop Sword Ghost because of the eyes and expression at that moment, which undoubtedly differed from the time of the massacre of 2,000 people. After that, she took off her shoes, threatening, "You can tell me how you want to die. I can generously fulfill your wish." Brian was silently observing at this time. The suspicious act of taking off her shoes, could it be just to reduce weight? Is this in order to increase her speed? She can only secure the Apostle's position based on speed alone. This seems unlikely. In the Ghost Blade family, the title Sword Ghost is the highest honor. Only the strongest among them can receive the inheritance from the previous generation. She quickly rushed towards Brian. This woman, taking off her shoes is not simply to reduce weight. This should be the speed she naturally possesses. The secret lies in the soles of her feet. Ghost shoes. She uses this thing to generate kinetic energy for her, because the high-speed mode of travel always has a vacuum period. Ghost shoes can be used to achieve maneuverability in rapidly approaching one position and quickly transferring to another position. Therefore, high-speed kinetic energy can also be converted into powerful force. This kind of force often enhances the destructive power of the user by several times. Seeing this momentum, Shadow admitted his own worries. Sword Ghost's speed is very fast. After every move, it disappears into thin air. It's also difficult for this young one to counterattack. In other words, as long as he can't grasp the flaw, he can stand undefeated. A mysterious doubt welled up in Shadow's heart. He was clearly the defensive side. But in his eyes, there was no hint of defeat. And he kept observing the movements of Sword Ghost over and over again. Feeling uneasy, he intercepted Sword Ghost and claimed that this kid was a little strange. However, Sword Ghost did not give him a good look. After kicking him, he angrily reprimanded Shadow. "From now on, you better not interfere with me. Just stay there and watch quietly. Don't blabber on." But Brian doesn't think so. The way you just acted, exhausting yourself and out of breath. Why don't you let him help? He may be fast, but compared to Simon, it's nothing at all. It seems that Sword Ghost is just SOSO. Facing such humiliation and provocation, she gnashed her teeth in anger. She instantly burst out with endless murderous intent. She charged at Brian and started attacking again. Sword Ghost's pupils dilated. He looked at the smelly kid in front of him in disbelief. But Brian remained calm. "Aren't you curious? How am I able to withstand all your attack methods? You kick the floor and pillars with such force, although gaining an unparalleled speed. But it also means there is a fatal weakness. By determining the direction of the sound, you are sure to kick a certain area. In doing so, it is equivalent to telling yourself where your attack is aimed. In other words, just need to block the path in that direction with the sword. You can easily block your attack." Brian knows. This woman is fast and strong. They combined are not to be underestimated. And that one too. It's a gift for returning to you from the Spiral Sword Master. The Sword Ghost is struggling in pain in Shadow's arms at this moment. She keeps murmuring in her mouth. "Right now, immediately. You detonate that thing for me. You must do it yourself. Tear that stinky brat into pieces." Suddenly, with a loud noise, the ceiling exploded. This feeling is also extremely familiar to Brian. It's the perfume that was sprayed during their first encounter. As the lingering smoke slowly descended, Sword Ghost revealed a sinister smile. "You are doomed. Even if it's Brian who comes, it won't be able to solve this. He has absolutely no way to deal with it. It belongs to my territory only." When Brian is enveloped in an illusion of fragrance, he did not choose to escape. The enemies are all laughing heartily, ridiculing him as a fool. Everyone who smells this perfume will become intoxicated. He becomes the lamb waiting to be slaughtered on the chopping board. Yet this young man unexpectedly chooses not to run away, but stays in place foolishly. Just as Sword Ghost is about to deliver a fatal blow and end his life, he finds himself involuntarily wriggling in the smoke. Even Shadow is puzzled. Shouldn't he be experiencing hallucinations at this moment? Sword Ghost seems to have noticed something. Could it be that he has been holding his breath all this time? But even so, you can't hold your breath forever. And Brian took off his vest, wrapped it all around the blade. He then poured a bottle of strong alcohol on it. The perfume you have always relied on. Now it will give you an unforgettable experience. How helpless you are in the end. Brian was seen slashing the burning blade into the air, igniting the fumes filled with hallucinogens. The Sword Ghost stood still in its original spot. And Shadow had just reacted. It turns out he had already discovered the clues long ago. Perfume is made up of soft materials. It contains 60% alcohol. Therefore, it is also very easy to ignite. When Sword Ghost first came into contact with the young man, he discovered this secret. But Sword Ghost did not give up. Because even so, the entire hall still contains a large amount of perfume smoke. Brian directly inserted the blade into the floor. The raging flames immediately lit up. Sword Ghost, the people were all dumbfounded. How could this be possible? It turns out that just now, Brian threw the bottle not to stop Sword Ghost's movement, but to get alcohol all over the floor in the room. He has been laying out the battlefield from the beginning in order to achieve a more favorable situation for himself. At this moment, the Sword Ghost has been driven crazy by anger. She rushed forward alone with a sword in hand. But now, she couldn't even cause harm to Brian, let alone him. The consequences of this amount of bleeding. She could hardly even maintain her balance. And her strength and speed have also significantly decreased. She is no longer able to pose any threat. This is already her limit so far. But suddenly, the scene in front of him also shocked Brian. Shadow's chop stopped Sword Ghost's movements. Without one hand, it would lead to heavy bleeding. In addition, her blood pressure is rising. It would become even more dangerous if she continued to fight. Let her calm down. This should be the most correct judgment to make at the moment. Brian thought he would be the next opponent. But Shadow did not do so. He turned around and fled with Sword Ghost from this place. They dashed towards the flaming passageway of the cabin. On the way out, Shadow was very frustrated. It really shouldn't have let her fight alone. As for Brian, according to the plan, he should finish the fight and leave here. But there is still an unsolved mystery. The organization of wandering ghosts. Ghost Blade. When verifying the identities of the two with Melissa at that time, they discovered something extremely strange. She killed at most 2,000 people. What ability does she have to become the new Simon? Which disciple in glory is not more powerful than her? Even more valuable than nuclear weapons. She is completely unqualified to become an apostle. And they have checked a large amount of information. She is simply no match for Simon in terms of ability. Even so, Glory's new boss still recruited her. What could be the reason behind this? And Brian's guess was also confirmed. When he came to the cruise ship deck alone, a figure slowly appeared behind him. It turned out that he is the true apostle Simon, Kenneth, codenamed Shadow. Brian is very puzzled. With your strength, why would you willingly become a shadow? You have absolutely no need for that. You are definitely qualified to become an apostle yourself. Shadow says you don't need to be so curious. In this circle, curious people do not survive for long. Brian pretended to remain calm. Because this person is just a shadow. There has been no trace of his messages. Even in the previous battle with Daniel, he also gained some preliminary understanding of his ability values. And now I am facing a character who I have no knowledge of at all. More importantly, he has no idea about his tactics. There is truly immense pressure behind him. The two of them started to fight. After a brief exchange just now, Brian became even more doubtful, because he couldn't understand the man in front of him at all. His movements and posture were very different. This style didn't seem like karate at all. He had clearly been through tens of thousands of battles himself. But he had never seen a human using this kind of fighting style before. Could it be that he was still hiding something? Or perhaps, he possessed secret techniques even he wasn't aware of. But he clearly had many flaws. His neck, chest, and abdomen were all exposed. His movements showed no defense for his vital areas. This clumsy way of fighting is extremely unnatural. It's confusing Brian about the direction. His every move seems like he has never learned any fighting skills. Yet, it gives people the feeling that he is very proficient in this field. This kind of eerie feeling is more like an animal instinct. He dodged his own attack in an extraordinary way. He possesses an insight that ordinary people do not have. When he saw the opponent make a move, he is contemplating whether to take the blow or evade it. All the signs indicate the above. It means he is a ruthless fighting machine. He is inherently a wild beast. Just because they are a world-famous unique family. Venomous panther. Only those who survive inside can inherit their unique traits. Extremely corrosive blood. This type of blood is like highly concentrated sulfuric acid. It can instantly corrode all substances. It only takes a few seconds to melt them. And yet, this family was slaughtered overnight. They were completely wiped out. It's a more famous school in Japan, Ghost Blade. But they left behind a cub. They think that in this chaotic world, leaving behind a lone seedling is a very interesting thing. However, this lone seedling displayed amazing talent in the Ghost Blade sect. He even accidentally injured his fellow senior brothers in the sect. And he himself didn't know why he did that. He clearly didn't do anything. It was just ordinary martial arts practice. His growth speed is also seen by the Wensheng sect's Wensheng, the descendant of a poisonous leopard with acidic blood. They will continue to grow and evolve. Slowly they will all become loners. They possess innate combat talent and toxic blood. If left unchecked, he will become more and more powerful, more and more uncontrollable. They have also come up with a special solution. That is the rumored flea market. Fleas can jump more than a meter high themselves. It is a height equivalent to 200 times their own body size. But if you put the flea in a bottle and close the lid for 3 days, when the lid is opened, they still cannot jump out of the bottle. They will only realize that their limit is right there. So as long as we suppress his growth, prepare a bottle for him, he can then be controlled by his own sect. After that, he was nowhere to be seen in the sect's training. He was ostracized and isolated by everyone. He was not allowed to participate in any martial arts training because of his unique bloodline. No one wanted to be close to him. Some even spoke ill of him and resorted to physical confrontations. At such a young age, he couldn't understand why he couldn't train and grow up like everyone else. What did he do wrong? Why was he destined to be hated from birth? After a punch full of anger, decades-old tree was knocked down by him. But suddenly, the fledgling bird that was originally on the tree fell beside him. Seeing its lone figure, he thought of his own loneliness. He just wanted to take it up the big tree and send it back to its original nest. But when he got up there, he found that the bird had long melted in his palm. Seeing everything in front of him, he could not accept it. It turned out that no one could get close to him. From then on, he would always be lonely. He couldn't get close to anyone. Everyone would detest him and keep their distance. Since these people all wanted to avoid him and detest him, he might as well make them even more afraid of him. After that, the 23rd generation master of Ghost Blade also found that he could not suppress his growth at all. He single-handedly wiped out the powerful family. Their miserable state is shocking to behold, as if they were torn apart by wild beasts. This is a very remarkable ability. At the same time, it is a talent that possesses a threatening nature. He is like a fierce beast in the dark night, born to be a ghostly hunter. It's a pity that the blood running in this descendant's body does not belong to the Ghost Blade. But as long as he doesn't climb onto his owner's head, there is no need for more worries. And all of this, Kenneth actually understands in his heart. But even so, he is willing to be a shadow, to become the man guarding behind Sword Ghost. Brian is also very puzzled, being a genius like him. Does he have any special skills to become an apostle at Glory Group? His difficult-to-understand flexibility. His movements are so fast that even he can't predict them. even a series of irregular attacks. He can easily deal with them. After the initial exchange, Kenneth realized the fierceness of this man. But only just that. It seems that there's no use for that thing. Brian does not think so. Compare it to your own talents. Your tactics for both attack and defense. Both are too simple and brainless. You probably haven't studied combat skills much. You mean you are incapable of learning, right? Really hard to understand. You clearly have the ability. Why do you keep hiding behind Sword Ghost? What is suppressing your nature? Have you left your master, so you can't do anything? Kenneth was also shocked. Why does this man know the information hidden behind him? No matter what happens, you must protect the Sword Ghost. He burst forth and charged towards Brian. And this action made Brian feel more and more amazed. All the movements were full of recklessness yet full of creativity. Maybe he didn't need to learn any combat skills at all. He felt like he never found anyone threatening no matter who he encountered. Like a ferocious beast, instinctively biting onto the other's neck, and then tearing off the prey's head. But there is still one thing that cannot be explained. He seems to still be hiding something. Kenneth is a bit nervous facing this young man, because he has been aiming at a target all along. That target is his own leg. He always wants to set a trap, to suppress his own actions. His agility must be giving him a headache. So he set up a dragnet, so that he could just take advantage of his purposefulness, to attack him by going the other way. He had just wanted to suppress Brian, but was counterattacked by Brian. Kenneth, whose actions were suppressed, was very puzzled. When did these iron chains come out? Could it be from the battle just now? He just prepared for everything that was coming next. He had already made all the preparations for this series of events. It seems you have always relied on instinct in fighting, but you witnessed my battle against Sword Ghost. You must have realized the existence of this matter. Therefore, my inducement must be more sophisticated. You have never fought in your whole life. Fighting battles that require using your brain, right? Don't waste your energy. Even using an electric saw on this iron chain, it's still hard to cut through. Nevertheless, he hides a set of dark claws in his sleeve. And this set of dark claws not only has corrosion resistance, but can also cut through its own skin. In other words, he uses his own blood to melt the iron chains wrapped around his neck. This is also the reason he can become an apostle. This is what was seen at the auction at that time. A power that can melt people. Brian, who saw all this, became exceptionally cautious. Having this kind of ability also means I cannot easily approach him. Even more, there is a bit of a tricky presence. During the exchange, Brian has been trying to avoid touching hands with him. Based on the recent series of confirmations, this should be self-evident. In the world exists blood that can dissolve everything, venomous panther. Even he himself was quite surprised. This family clearly disappeared from the world for a very long time. Their descendants have been slaughtered one after another. Are you the only one who survived? And they are even trampling on your family. What exactly are you thinking? Originally, you were capable of establishing an independent career. Why do you have to belittle yourself like this? Kenneth also finds it very strange. Why would this young man know his own secrets? Someone who can confront Sword Ghost head-on. In this world, there are only a few people like that. He himself cannot not know. So who exactly are you? Do you really want to know? Then you have to defeat me. The two of them then started fighting. Brian's injury on his chin. It was just right. But this clumsy attack doesn't work at all. He can still turn around and counterattack, because there is not much power behind this attack. If I increase my strength, I can cause damage to him. Then it will cause him to bleed, becoming a weapon against oneself. It seems that there is no way to defeat him without eliminating his toxins first. Brian is thinking, what should I do next? Suddenly, he found something fun. And Kenneth also followed in. The corrosiveness of this toxin. Now it is becoming more and more powerful. The sense of oppression he brings makes people feel helpless. Kenneth made a suggestion. He just needs to tell himself about Brian's whereabouts. Then you can be let go. Brian shrugged at this too. Do you feel invincible like this? No one can resist you. Seeing the scene in front of him, Kenneth was completely confused. What kind of joke was he playing? Brian, on the other hand, remained calm and composed. Joking? This is impossible, he said. I'm seriously battling with you, he said. But you can't imagine. This mop will become the weapon that costs you your life.